Hello, everyone. Success Mindset Coach Sandra Rojo with another video today. Welcome. Today, I would like to talk about unconditional love, just a little bit, and it will be more food for thought. I've been very much inspired in the last few days as I'm contemplating and looking within my relationships with my family, with the people I'm surrounded with, the most intimate people in my life. And so this is going to be a little bit philosophy, food for thought. I may be provocative because I'm going to be asking you some questions, or inviting you to contemplate on those questions, inviting you to take a deeper look at what that means to you and how you want to be treated within your relationships, because this is extremely important. So I'll begin by saying that this unconditional love is used a lot. You know, it's like, oh, you got to love unconditionally and so forth. And for many years, I had an aversion to this unconditional love word because it's like, what does that mean, really? Right? And it sounds self-explanatory. Unconditional love. That means that you don't have any conditions. So what I want to say right now, before I go into what I want to, is that I do believe in healthy boundaries. In other words, when you are in a relationship with someone, whether it's a parent, sibling, or significant other, and most intimate, and of course this expands into work and other relationships, there are limitations, right? There are things that you can tolerate, things that you can't tolerate or not willing to tolerate for whatever reason. So I'm not going to go into that. That would be some kind of boundary or limitation or no, right? Um, and so I want to state from the very beginning that it is appropriate to understand what feels good, what doesn't feel good, what's appropriate, what's not. And then within that context, also look within. Is that you don't like that because it's coming from a fear or from a childhood wound or from an insecurity, whatever it might be. This is something that we need to take a look at. And once we cleared that, like for example, using eutaptics, faster EFT, once we clear or discharge that emotionality, that negative connotation or that insecurity or that fear, then we can look again, we can come revisit, right? So it doesn't mean, and I'm not suggesting that because your language of love or the way you want to feel loved, it's like, well, I'm not going to do that because that's your problem. I'm not coming from that, because when we're in a family dynamic or when we're in an intimate relationship, I still believe it's important to meet the other person. I don't know if compromise is always the word I like to use, but for lack of a better one, I'll use the word compromise. It's meeting in the middle. It's teamwork. It's coming together to say, okay, maybe that's not the way I want to be loved, but I'm going to extend myself. I'm going to stretch myself and give you what you feel in the moment in your life that you need, considering that it is a healthy thing to do. So that's one thing. And now I'll go into more of the conditional love. For me, conditional love is, talking about unconditional love and the misunderstandings that we have are precisely that. It's all about communication. I'm old enough to know that my generation, of course, older generations, especially within marriages, people didn't really communicate a lot about what their needs were met. The wives didn't really communicate, and the husbands, were not always emotionally available for the wife or what have you in more traditional settings, right? You just kind of followed a certain type of rules and so forth. But we're entering really, I think in the last decade especially, we're entering sort of this new age or this, we have so many opportunities now to really heal our childhood wounds, to really take a look at what it is that we want, what it is that we really deserve, right, in a relationship and for ourselves. And I'm a great advocate. I've talked about this before in other videos, that we have to be that way to ourselves. We have to love ourselves, which is a lifelong journey, by the way, but get to the point where we like ourselves. Do we need to work on aspects of ourselves? Sure, we always do. It's just part of life. It's just how we're born, right? So when we enter relationships or we're in a family dynamic, we can't always expect other people to automatically or intuitively know what it is that we want or that we need or that we think we want, we think we need, and especially how to be loved. And I know this from experience. I mean, when I was in my 30s, I really didn't know how to even express, right, to the person I was with, or to my ex-husband at the time, my husband, what it is, how it is that I want to feel loved or be loved, right? And so I have a criteria of what that means to be loved. Consideration for me is extremely important. I'll just give you that, right? So it means different things to different people. The negative side sometimes to all of this is that when we are in family, when we're in our relationships and we're living life and so forth, we get angry and we get resentful, and we harbor this resentment within ourselves because he or she didn't do what I wanted them to do. But we also fail to express verbally to the other individual, or whoever that might be, just fill in the blank, what it is and how it is that we feel loved. Okay. And I'm speaking also coming from a place where it's reasonable, right? So for example, if you want a brand name bag every week and that's just not possible and that's the way you feel loved, well, that's, we need to take a look at that. So everything I'm talking about is in the context of what is healthier need or want. There's definitely a book out called The Languages of Love, and they talk about different ways that people love. Some people are very kinesthetic, they need a lot of hugs. Some people respond better to words, being complimented or things like that. And I'd like to think that most of us have a little bit of everything, right? We're not just corralled into one way of doing things, right? We're not just like, oh, you love me because you're hugging me or something to this effect. But when things don't go well, when we are triggered by other people, do we withdraw our love from them? So this is a question you need to ask yourself. Do you find yourself withdrawing? Do you find yourself withdrawing for a long period of time? Because if you are, that's something to take a look within yourself. From personal experience, when I was younger, I admit that I used to sort of withdraw. Being sort of a very sensitive person, I used to not understand that other person's behavior, and then I would sort of withdraw into my shell. And I was very hurt. And then, of course, resentment comes in, and I didn't quite understand how to do that. And then slowly but surely, with my personal development and my emotional maturity, I decided one day that I was just going to be who I was, that the other individual wasn't going to take away my freedom and my choice to love the way I wanted to. And so probably about 5 years ago, I really started to step into this role of, regardless of the way you're behaving and pouting, I still love you. I'm still going to be who I am. Even when I notice that I do feel a little hurt by this reaction, because many times we can be triggered by somebody else's trigger. This is a big one for a lot of people. So it's really important to be aware of your own triggers and take responsibility for your own self, right? So when we are in relationship, we need to ask ourselves, have I really communicated effectively to my significant other or to the people around me how I want to be loved? What does that mean? And in what circumstances can I feel the most supported within that love? And oh, by the way, it's not just about me, I. Have you asked, hey, love or mother or father or sibling, how can I support you? What can I do to make you feel loved, to have you feel loved, right? To create that security. Because even though we want to love ourselves and we want to like ourselves, and we are on our way to doing all these things for ourselves, we're not an island alone. We have an interconnectedness going on. We live with other people. So I don't buy into the belief that I don't need anybody, or I don't need a man or a woman or whatever. No, we don't need other people to make us happy. But when we are in relationship with people, we do teach people how to treat us. Yeah. So If the other person is constantly triggered, then that is their problem, right? But what we're talking about is we are in relationship with people. We're in relationship with everything around us. So we need to ask ourselves, are we treating as well? Are we treating other people the way we want to be treated? I hear so often people say, well, this is the way I love, Sandra. I expect my boyfriend, girlfriend, or my parent to do X, Y, and Z. This is how I love. And yet, when you start to probe and ask those coaching questions, we come to realize, and they themselves come to realize, that actually they're not doing that for the other person. They're not meeting their loved one where they want to be met as well. So this is extremely important because many times we're so self-centered. We don't, it's just kind of preservation, right? We think about ourselves, we start licking our wounds, we pout because I'm not doing this, or, I'm not getting this or that. But are we extending ourselves? Have we asked the question? Because remember, questions are extremely important so that the communication can really get clear, so that we can refine ourselves. When we're clear about how the other person wants to be loved or how we want to be loved, it becomes easier. And so I think we're living in a time where we just need to step up into that. We can't really afford, second guessing, or just meditating and trying to figure it out on our own, or just tapping away. I mean, we do our part, but we also want to be around people who want to love us, who want to meet us, um, uh, halfway, not just the one way kind of ticket situation. So another something else to ponder about, which I think is extremely important. I jotted down some questions for you to really contemplate on this, right? So one is, do you love your girlfriend, boyfriend, parent, spouse, or sibling, for example, because they do something for you? Do you love them because they only do things for you? Or do you love them for who they are? Okay. And so do you love them for your characters, what I mean, for who they are, their character, their values, right? Which could mean, are they in integrity? Are they honest? Are they loyal? Are they supportive, right? I might not always get what I want. I might not always get gifts from them, or have them, cook me dinner. I don't know, whatever it might be, or me, or get massages, or whatever it might be that you might feel. But in the times, in the scheme of the relationship, are you looking for evidence that this individual loves you? Because loving a person isn't just what they do for you, remember. And this is coming up a lot. A lot of concepts and labels are coming up, and I don't want to go into selfishness and things like that, but we do have to be careful, and ask ourselves, am I being selfish? Am I really looking at this a certain way? If my girlfriend, boyfriend, parent loves more hugs during the day, and that's not really me, but because I love them and I know that they like that, that's a demonstration, then am I going to extend the extra hug? If somebody needs to be emotionally supported, am I really doing that? So we have to ask ourselves objectively, and not just ask ourselves objectively, because there is a blind spot, people. Like, we all think we know exactly how to love the other person. When the other person comes to us and says, I don't feel loved. So let me ask you this. If your significant other or parent or adult child came to you and said, I don't feel loved in this way, or this is how I want to feel loved and I don't feel that way, are you going to react negatively to that? Or you're going to step back and ask the question, what am I doing? What am I not doing? Tell me how I can support you, or how you feel loved, so that I can improve on that. So the skill set of improvement, it's not being proud and saying, well, that's your problem, I'm going to let you do whatever, I'm going to let you resolve it. That's not helpful at all. And to me, in my opinion, that's actually mean-spirited. I mean, there's something not quite healthy about having that attitude. At the same time, we want to cultivate independence. We want people to be resilient, right? I mean, just because somebody is, if they're really needy, they need to take a look at that, right? So whether you withdraw or you're really needy, there's always something to refine, to improve, and to heal within yourself. Um, so it requires honesty, and it requires, quite frankly, the willingness to be flexible, the willingness to be able to take a look at yourself, because we always think much more about ourselves and what we do and how we say things, um, than really it might be. So it's not about beating ourselves up, it's just asking those kind of questions. So I'm going to leave you with that. Some food for thought. What is unconditional love? What does that mean? How can we become more emotionally intelligent when it comes to our relationships? And how can we stop acting like adult children? These children, these wounded children that, if I don't get what I want, then I'm going to withdraw my love. I'm insistent that I get absolutely what I want, but then not willing to compromise on the other hand. These conversations are sometimes uncomfortable, but they're really necessary for a relationship of any kind to grow and to mature and to flourish, right? So anyway, thank you for listening and tuning in. If you have any questions, you know the drill. Just go ahead and comment below. And please do subscribe to my YouTube channel. It really helps grow the channel and get the word out to people who really might need to hear this kind of message and maybe get these kind of questions so they can start pondering about how to become a better lover, parent, child person in the world, in the name of love. Okay, take care. Talk to you soon.